Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something that totally flips our idea of progress on its head. It's a journey that involves learning, then unlearning, and then learning all over again. So let's get right into it. All right, let's just dive right in with a big question about how we get better at, well, pretty much anything. Seriously, think about it for a second. When you're picking up a new skill, I don't know, a new language, getting good at a video game, do you just get better and better every single day? No setbacks at all? Yeah, that's what we all kind of imagine, isn't it? This clean, straight line going up and up toward mastery. But what cognitive scientists have found is that real, powerful learning, well, it's a lot messier. And honestly, it's way more interesting. And that messy reality brings us to the core idea for today, a pattern that just keeps popping up whenever we learn something really complex. And it's a wild idea, right? You start out doing okay, then you actually get worse for a bit, and only then do you achieve true mastery. I mean, it sounds totally backward. But that dip, that little valley in your performance, it's not just common. It might be a sign that something really important is happening inside your brain. So, you can basically think of this U shape in 3 stages. First, you learn. This is where you have some early success, usually just by memorizing stuff. Then comes the unlearn phase, and that's the dip. Your brain is trying to figure out a bigger, more complex rule, and suddenly you're making mistakes you weren't making before. And finally, you relearn, putting it all together, the big rule and all the little exceptions. The perfect example of this in action is how little kids learn English verbs. A toddler might correctly say went. Why? They just memorized it from hearing it. That's phase 1, the high point. But then they learn the rule that you add ed to make things past tense. And what happens? They start saying good. Their performance actually got worse. But here's the thing, that's progress. They're using a system now. And then finally, they figure it all out, mastering both the rule and the exception. And they go back to saying went, but this time with a way deeper understanding. And get this, it's not just about grammar. Psychologists see this same U-shaped curve all over the place. From how kids learn to recognize faces to a ton of other complex skills we pick up. It really seems to be a fundamental part of how our brains build up real, sophisticated knowledge. So, all of this begs a really important question. Is this dip in performance, this temporary failure, is it just some weird glitch in the learning process? Or is there something more to it? Yeah, this is the big puzzle researchers have been trying to solve. Is getting worse for a little while just an unlucky accident? Or could it actually be a required part of the journey to becoming a true expert? And the answer, which comes from computational learning theory, is pretty incredible. It turns out this dip, this step back, it's not a bug. It's a feature. It actually seems to be a necessary step to unlock your full learning potential. Okay, so this is really the key. If you just cling to that first easy success, that simple memorized fact, you could actually get stuck. The ability to let go, to unlearn something that's correct but too simple, is exactly what lets your brain build a stronger, more flexible, and way more powerful understanding of the world. So why? Why is this step back so necessary? Well, the answer comes down to the real-world limits of our own brains. You know, unlike a supercomputer, our brains have limits. We don't have infinite memory or processing power. Our brains have to be super efficient. And it turns out, those very limitations are what make this whole U-shaped process so critical. So what's the tipping point? The magic number that makes this whole step back to leap forward thing essential. You might be surprised by how small it is. This is just a wild discovery. In computer models of learning that have only 1 or 2 memory slots, you can learn just fine without the dip. But the moment you add a little complexity, just 3 or more memory states, that U-shape suddenly becomes absolutely necessary to get to the highest level of learning. Taking that step back isn't just a good idea, it becomes mathematically essential. Okay, so a quick clarification. This U-shape isn't needed for everything. If you're just learning something simple, step by step, you probably won't see it. But for what's called behaviorally correct learning, where the goal is just to get the right answer in the end, no matter how complicated the path is, that's where the U-shape becomes totally essential. So let's bring this all together. How should we think about this unlearning part of the curve? Well, it's deeply connected to something we do every day, forgetting. Yeah, that's right. Instead of seeing that dip as a failure, it's better to think of it as a really smart, strategic kind of forgetting.
Your brain is actively clearing out a simple, memorized fact to make room for a deeper, more powerful rule.
And this just shows you that forgetting isn't just your memory fading away. It's an active process. Our brains are kind of like old manuscripts, called palimpsests, where scribes would scrape off the old ink to write something new and more important. It's so crucial, in fact, that one of the biggest problems in AI is what they call catastrophic forgetting, where a neural network completely forgets an old skill when it learns a new one. Our brains, with this elegant U-shape, figured out how to avoid that. So here's the big takeaway for you. The next time you're learning something and you feel like you're struggling, try to reframe it. That moment of confusion, that dip where you feel like you're going backward, that's not a sign of failure. It's probably the sign of a breakthrough. It's your brain taking one necessary step back so it can take a massive leap forward.
So, what if your next mistake isn't a mistake at all? What if it's actually the very first step toward your next big breakthrough? Think about that. Thanks for joining me.